The third.
Welcome back to another episode of the IFC's Individuation podcast. I am Dr. Lahab Al-Samarrai, and with me today, as always, Dr. Eric Tomlinson to my left, and Dr. Lisa Hong to my right. I don't know if that's the case if we expand screen. Nope, just what I thought. There we go. Okay, so today, as always, we are going to get into another story from the hero's journey. Our beloved Mary Louise von Franz, the hero's journey. So we continue with the hero's journey. We are going to start with chapter 14 today, and the story of Djihanishah. It's a story from the old world, from Turkey, but what used to be referred to as Mesopotamia before it was referred to as Turkey, as part of Mesopotamia.
Actually, Dr. Lahab, it was called Anatolia.
Anatolia. Well,
Yeah.
is that? But parts of Mesopotamia is where this story takes place.
Oh, cool.
So in this story in particular, was what is now known as Turkey, what in the past was known as Mesopotamia. And you are correct, sir. At one point, it was referred to as Anatolia. Okay, so today we are going to talk about the connection between the archetype of the old wise one and that of the anima. And what we will see in this story is what's peculiar about this kind of mirror image relationship. So as we age and as we individuate, we integrate more and more of the anima. So in this story, so the anima or the and the old one are basically, they mirror each other, because the old one has basically integrated the anima and the knowledge that the anima possesses. So we're talking about complete integration. I don't know if that happens, but in this story it does. So that's why we're looking at a mirror image between the two. They both represent the unconscious and the collective conscious attitude. They both hold both in their hands. This sometimes at odd paradoxical relation is clearly illustrated in the story. So in the story, we're going to see how the paradox or the battle of wits, the interaction between these two characters take place. Okay, without further ado, Dr. Lisa, you want to start?
Sure. Here we go with the story of Johannes. There once was a Padishah called the Djihanishah, who said, "I want to find the other end of this world," and took soldiers and provisions with him on a boat across the sea. Underway, he met with a big storm and lost all his food and soldiers. He alone survived. After 3 or 4 months, the Djihanishah finally reached land. He came to a village and remained there as a guest. One day, when he arose, he heard a crier calling out, "Is there anybody who would like to earn a new suit, a lot of money, and a pretty girl for an hour's work?" Since the Djihanishah was in need, he said, "I want to do this." And the man gave him a suit, money, and the girl. Then the man said, "Come, I will take you to the place." He gave the Djihanishah a horse, mounted one himself, and took along 10 of the horses and 2 people. Thus they went into the mountains, came to a rocky place, and dismounted from their horses. The man killed one of the horses, slit open his belly, took out the entrails, and said to the Djihanishah, "Take your clothes off." And Johannes asked, "Then what should I do?" "Will you climb into the belly of the horse? You will climb into the belly of the horse and sleep for an hour, and tell me what you have seen in your dreams." The Djihanishah undressed and climbed naked into the belly of the horse. Then the man sewed up the belly and went to hide in an ambush. From the top of a nearby mountain great birds flew down, picked up the dead horse with the Djihanishah inside, and flew with their bounty to the top of the mountain. The birds shredded the horse and ripped open its belly, but when the Djihanishah stepped out, they scattered in all directions. The Djihanishah looked around and saw that he was not at the same place where he climbed into the dead horse's belly. He went to the edge of a cliff and looked around. Down below, he saw the people with the horses. The man called up to him, "Throw down a few stones from up there, and I will tell you how you can climb down." The Djihanishah threw some stones down, which the people collected, but then they went back to their village. The Djihanishah eventually found a way to descend. He took 2 bones in his hands as supports for the steep ascent. On the path down, the way ended abruptly. He found himself standing at the height of 2 minarets above the ground. He had no choice but to throw himself down. Allah saved him from sure death, and Djihanishah fell unconscious on the ground. When he came to himself, he saw that he had climbed down at sunrise and at sunset regained consciousness. It was impossible to reach this place from land or sea. In the distance, he spied a castle. All around, he searched for a way. Soon he found one and made his way to the castle. Once there, he opened the door and entered. There, he found a man with a white beard. When this man saw the Djihanishah, he rose up and asked him, "But my dear son of man, how did you find your way here?" The Djihanishah told him what had happened, and the man with the white beard who lived there in the castle said, "My son, take this key, open any door but that one there. In 3 days I will return, but do not open that door." Then the old one with the white beard left. As soon as Johannes was alone, he opened one door after another and looked inside. When he came to the door that he should not open, he thought to himself, "Oh well, I have experienced so much misfortune, I will open that door also, come what may." He opened the door and stepped inside. In the middle, there stood a water fountain surrounded by a rose garden. He heard nightingales singing. Behind all the doors he had opened, there was nothing so beautiful, and in those places, no nightingales sang. The Djihanishah went for a walk around the fountain and then sat down under a rose tree. A dove flew down and sat on the stone wall at the foot of the water. The Djihanishah watched the bird transformed into a maiden. Then another dove flew down, and then another. All 3 doves turned into maidens. The older one said to the others, "Look around and see if there is a human around." The youngest said, "Since the time of Sultan Suleiman, no human being has come here. Let us take our clothes off." When the youngest one undressed, the Djihanishah saw her beauty, lost his senses, and fainted. Those doves came once a year to this fountain, bathed themselves, and then flew away. This time, too, after they had bathed, they left again. When the old man with the white beard returned, he noticed that the Djihanishah was nowhere in the castle. He looked all over and could not find him. Then he thought, "Maybe he has opened the door I said not to open and has gone in there. Then surely misfortune has befallen him." The old one went into that room and looked around the garden. He found the Djihanishah laying on the ground under a rose tree and shook him until he returned to his senses. What happened to you? Oh, Father, I will do anything you want. Just tell me how I can find the youngest of the maidens. I will serve you all my life. Just procure that girl for me. The old man answered, those were peri, evil spirits. They come here once a year and bathe in the pool and then go away. But if I am here, they do not come. They only come when I go to govern the birds. Then they come in the form of doves. If you wait a year, they will come again just as they did before. When the youngest has taken her clothes off, remove them and keep good hold of her, so no matter how hard she pleads, until she has given birth to a child for you. The Djihanishah waited a year. Then, when 1 year passed, the lord of the castle again gave him the key.
The Johanishah went into the garden and hid under a tree again. The doves came and took off their clothes. The Johanishah stole the garments of the youngest dove and went back and sat under the rose tree. After they had bathed, the older maidens found their clothes, dressed, and flew away. The youngest was flustered when she saw the Johanishah with her clothes and pleaded with him that if he were to return her robes, she would belong to him. But the Johanishah waited until the lord of the castle returned. The youngest maiden said to the old man, marry me to this Johanishah. But the Johanishah said, only when my father is present will I join in marriage with you. The owner of the castle warned him under no circumstances to give back her clothes. The maiden took him on her back and flew with the Johanishah into the air. She pointed down to the city below and asked, what city is that? The Johanishah replied, that is the city of my father. The girl descended with him to the ground. The Johanishah's father and mother had not seen their son for 3 years, and now he appeared with a beautiful girl. The Johanishah now ordered, split a marble stone. In the crack, he put the clothes of the girl. Now a castle shall be built, he commanded. The marble stone he made into the cornerstone of his new castle. He let the castle be built and the wedding be prepared. When the castle was finished and all the arrangements for the wedding ready, he bade the maiden to enter. When she came inside, she smelled the odor of her clothes, found the marble stone at the base of the castle, pulled them out, and flew up on a windowsill and remained there. When the Hojas led the Djihanishah into the castle in prayer, he could not find the maiden in her room. He thought, am I in the wrong room or am I confused? Then he turned around. The maiden said, or when he turned around, the maiden said, you are not confused. I'm here on the windowsill. He said, come down. She answered, when the Padishah of the birds, as a Hoja, led us to our marriage ceremony, you said, my mother and father may now see that their wish is fulfilled. Now your mother and father have seen their wish fulfilled, but not mine. If you love me and want to have me, then you must come and visit me in the Periland of my father. And with these words, she flew away. The Djihanishah wept, and all the relatives and parents came and said, we would like to give you the daughter of this and that vizier, but nothing helped. The maiden went to her parents and related the story of all that had happened. Her father said, oh, my daughter, that was the son of a king. You were meant for him. You should not have flown away. The girl answered, I hope that he searches and finds me or dies for my sake. And besides, he must be found in the castle of the Padishah of birds in the garden with the fountain and rose trees. According to these words, her father sent 2 Padis out to find the Padishah with the white beard and the Djihanishah. The Djihanishah once again boarded a boat, just as 3 years earlier, and sailed again to that land. There the barker cried out, a suit, 1,000 piastres, and a pretty girl for 1 hour of work. The Djihanishah took on the job, the suit, the money, and the girl, mounted a horse, and rode up into the mountains. And just as before, he took off his clothes and let himself be sewn into the belly of the dead horse. The big birds came and carried him up to the top of the mountain. They pecked open the horse. He stepped out, and the birds all scattered. When the Djihanishah looked around and saw the people below, they cried out, "Throw a stone down and we'll tell you how to climb down." The Djihanishah did not throw a stone down because the last time the people had deceived him. The stone weighed as much as an Osman oka and was worth its weight in gold. Like the first time, he took 2 bones as supports and slowly climbed down. When he came again to the heights of the 2 minarets from the ground, saw no path and no crevices in the cliff, he threw himself down and collapsed unconscious. When he again came to himself and looked around, he saw the castle and went there. Inside, he found the old man with the white beard and kissed his hands and feet. The old man knew that the girl had escaped. Her father had sent 2 petty messengers to find the youth. He asked the bird, that is, the old man, the Padishah of the birds, "Do you know of the land of the petties?" The bird answered, "I do not know of it, but there is a great bird called the Emerald Bird whom we can ask." He called the Emerald Bird and asked. The Emerald Bird answered, "When I was still a young bird in my nest, my mother took me and flew me to the border of Pettyland. I know this border, but I will not go beyond. To fly from here, the castle of the Padishah of birds, all the way to the border of Pettyland would take 3 months. From that border to the city where the father of the maiden lives would take another 6 months." The lord of the castle filled a water bag with 20 okas of water and packed another bag of meat, strapped them to the back of Djihanishah, and helped him mount the Emerald Bird. He also wrote a letter to give to his elder brother who lived a month's travel away. He was also a Padishah of birds. The old man with the white beard then told the Djihanishah, "When the bird upon which you sit cries out, 'Chishkak,' then give him a piece of meat. When he cries out, 'Chishunk,' then give him some water." To the Emerald Bird, he said, "Fly the Djihanishah to my elder brother, then fly back." The Emerald Bird flew the Djihanishah to the elder bird Padishah, gave him the letter, and returned. The elder brother read the letter, "Put the Djihanishah on a strong bird and write a letter to our eldest brother that he should find another bird to take the young man to the land of the petties." This brother then called together all his birds, picked the strongest, set the Djihanishah upon it, and gave him the message. This bird then flew to the eldest brother. There, the Djihanishah mounted another bird who flew him on and set him down at the border of Pettyland. There, the Djihanishah met the 2 petties, whom the father of the girl had sent out to find him. They said to one another, "This is the one whom our petty Padishah is looking for." They took hold of him without causing any pain and brought him to the Peri maiden's father. This one said, "I am satisfied," and ordered the wedding ceremony be prepared and consummated. When all was finished, he brought the Djihanishah to the nuptial chamber, and there he attained his wish. After some time had passed, the Djihanishah longed to visit his father. He put his wife on petties and sent precious gifts along with them. When they flew through the air, they looked down and saw a place with meadows and fields and the barren land below. The wife asked to stay there for the night. They stepped down from the air and tarried in this place. As they leisured, the wife went to the water to wash her back. There on the shore, she removed her clothes. As she stepped into the water, a wolf came out of the forest and killed the woman. When the husband learned that a wolf had eaten up his beloved wife, he began to weep and never stopped. He would go neither to his father nor to the parents of the girl, but remained at that place crying until he died.
It's a very sad story.
Yeah, it is.
It's a chaotic story. It's the chaos
It
of the
is.
unconscious. You could tell from the get-go that something is wrong. The flow of the story shows you that something is wrong. The way the story is flowing or not flowing shows you that something is not as it seems. So early on in the story, the old man, a shapeshifter, a wizard, tries to impart some wisdom on this kid who seems to be chaotic. What struck me interesting at the beginning of the story is that he was stuffed into the belly of the horse, sewn up inside the horse, and there he had a dream. Right? In Star Wars, then The Empire Strikes Back, Luke is stuck into an animal because he was frozen, and he has a dream of Yoda. And he has a dream about where he needs to go to train. And here in the story of Djihanishah, it says that the girls that come, I will take you to a place. He gave Djihanishah a horse, mounted one himself, and took along 10 other horses and 2 people. Thus they went into the mountains and came to a rocky place. And dismounted from their horses, the man killed one of the horses, slit open its belly, took out the entrails, and said to Djihanishah, "Take your clothes off." The Djihanishah asked, "Then what should I do?" "You will climb into the belly of the horse, sleep for an hour, and tell me what you have seen in your dreams." Djihanishah undressed and climbed naked into the belly of the horse. Then the man sewed up the belly and went to hide in an ambush from the top of the nearby mountain. Great birds flew down, picked up the dead horse with the Djihanishah inside, and flew with their bounty to the top of the mountain. The birds shredded the horse and ripped open its belly. But when the Djihanishah stepped out, they scattered in all directions. The Djihanishah looked around and saw that he was not at the same place where he climbed into the dead horse belly. He went to the edge of the cliff and looked around. So they had taken him from one place to another. And he's on an edge of a cliff and he's looking down. Down below, he saw the people with the horses. The man called up to him, "Throw down a few stones from up there, and I will tell you how you can climb down." The Djihanishah threw some stones down, which the people collected, but then they went back to their village. The Djihanishah eventually found a way to descend. He took 2 bones in his hands as supports for the steep descent. On the path down, the way ended abruptly. He found himself standing at the height of 2 minarets above the ground. He had no choice but to throw himself down. Allah saved him from sure death, and Djihanishah fell unconscious on the ground. When he came to himself, he saw that he climbed down at sunrise and at sunset regained consciousness. So as the sun sets, so this is the opposite of what happens, right? At sunrise, you rise. At sunset, you become unconscious. At sunset, he regained his consciousness. It was impossible to reach this place from land or from sea because it's not a physical place. It's a magical place. And he can't see the magical place without being in the belly of the horse. He cannot see the magical place because he had to be born through the belly of the horse by scavenger birds, right? Once there, he opened the door and entered. There he found a man with a white beard. So he meets the wizard or the magician or the shapeshifter. When this man saw Djihanishah, he rose up and asked him, "But my dear son, how did you find your way here?" Djihanishah told him that he had happened, and the man with the white beard who lived there in the castle said, "My son, take this key, open any door but that one there. In 3 days I will return, but do not open that door." And then the old one with the white beard left. Number one task, don't open the door. Not complicated, right, Dr. Eric? Right, Dr. Lisa? Not complicated.
Not at all.
Don't open the door. Pandora's box is behind the door. Don't open the door. But what is there? I have to see. Don't open the door. So, and he says to himself, he's such a Tinkerbell. He says to himself, "Oh, well, I have experienced so much misfortune. I will open that door also, come what may." Well, I've experienced so much misfortune. What can be some more misfortune? That's a terrible outlook. Terrible idea. "I will open the door also, come what may." He opened the door and stepped inside, and in the middle stood a water fountain surrounded by a rose garden. So this is the magical garden where magical creatures live. The door represents a opening to a different dimension. Don't open the door. That's not where you belong. You're not supposed to be in there. Well, what does he see? He sees a garden. And in the garden, in the center of the garden, there's a fountain. And in the fountain, he heard nightingales singing. Behind all the other doors he had opened, there was nothing so beautiful in these places. No nightingale sang. The Djihanishah went for a walk around the fountain and then sat down under a rose tree. A dove flew down and sat on the stone wall at the pool of water. Johannes watched as the bird transformed into a maiden. Then another dove flew down, then another. All three doves turned into maidens. The oldest one said to the others, "Look around and see if there's a human around." Okay, so they're not human. Hint, hint, they're not human. Right? They're spirits. And they're evil spirits at that. Since the time of Sultan Suleiman, no human being has come here. Let us take our clothes off. When the youngest one undressed, the Djihanishah saw her beauty, lost his senses, and fainted. These doves came once a year to this fountain and bathed themselves, then flew away. This time, too, after they had bathed, they left again. So this is a fountain of rebirth. They come every year to be reborn. And they're reborn as human in the fountain. But they're magical creatures, so they take the form of the dove and they fly away. They only come back once a year. So when the wizard returns, he noticed that Djihanishah was nowhere in the castle. Then he thought to himself, maybe dumbass opened the door. I said not to open, and has gone in there. Then surely misfortune has befallen him. The old one went into that room, looked around the garden, and he found the Djihanishah laying on the ground under a rose tree, shook him until he returned to his senses. "What happened to you?" "Oh, father, I'll do anything you want. Just tell me how I can find the youngest of the maidens. I will serve you all my life. Just procure that girl for me." So she's like a siren in Greek mythology. You reach out for the siren, you cannot possess the siren. The siren turns into a monster and she kills you. You cannot have, you cannot contain, you cannot own. And these are like warnings all through time, psychological warnings about how not to treat the feminine, how not to think of the feminine as property or ownership, is not to think of them as a physical body or entity, is to have more respect. These are what? Oh, Father, I will do anything you want. Just tell me how I can find the youngest of the maidens. I will serve you all my life. Just procure the girl for me. The old man answered, those were Puri. And Puris are almost always evil spirits. So she's a spirit. And anything that's disembodied is considered evil. Anything that does not have a physical body, and this is in religion, anything that does not have a physical body should not be on the earth. It's either above in the heavens or beneath in the underworld. It should never be on the earth. That's in all religions. In this one, it's more, this is an Islamic, it's not an Islamic fairy tale, but Muslims are, this is in the time of Islam. And therefore, as taking from that symbolism of the evil spirit. And what does the evil spirit do? The evil spirit entices, right? It seduces, and you give up everything up for it. You absolutely will trade in anything for it. There's nothing more valuable to you than it. And so it's a form of possession. You're possessed by the spirit now. Because of course, no human woman can measure to her beauty. She's not human. She's a shapeshifter. She turns into a dove. She turns into a bird. She turns into a maiden when she does not have clothes on. So he says, they come here once a year and bathe in the pool, then go away. But if I'm here, they do not come. They only come when I go to govern the birds. And then they come in the form of doves. If you wait a year, they will come again, just as they did before. When the youngest has taken off her clothes, remove them and keep good hold of her, no matter how hard she pleads, until she given birth to a child for you. Okay, so capture the bird and hold the bird until the bird gives you an egg or a child, gives you a magical child. Then you could let her go. So Djihanishah waited a year. She's been dreaming about it for a year. The lord of the castle again gave him the key. Djihanishah went into the garden and hid under a tree again. The doves came, took off their clothes. The Djihanishah stole the garments of the youngest dove and went back and sat under the rose tree. After they had bathed, the older maidens found their clothes, dressed, and flew away. The youngest was flustered when she saw Djihanishah with her clothes and pleaded with him that if he returned her robes, she would belong to him. But the Djihanishah waited until the lord of the castle returned. The youngest maiden said to the old man, marry me to this Djihanishah. But Djihanishah said, only when my father is present will I join in marriage with you. The owner of the castle warned him under no circumstances to give her back her clothes. The maiden took him on her back and flew with Djihanishah into the air. She pointed down to the city below and asked, what the city is that? Djihanishah replied, that is the city of my father. The girl descended with him to the ground, and Djihanishah, father and mother, had not seen their son for 3 years, and now he appeared with a beautiful girl. He ordered that they split a marble stone. In the crack, he put the clothes of the girl. Now a castle shall be built, he commanded. The marble stone he made into the cornerstone of his new castle. He let the castle be built and the wedding be prepared. When the castle was finished and all the arrangements for the wedding ready, he bade the maiden to enter. When she came inside, she smelled the odor of her clothes and found the marble stone at the base of the castle, pulled them out and flew up on the windsill and remained there. When the Hojis are religious people, led the Djihanishah into the castle in prayer. He could not find the maiden in her room. He thought, am I in the wrong room or am I confused? When he turned around, the maiden said, you're not confused. I'm here on the windowsill. He said, come down, she answered. When the Padishah of the birds, as Hoji led us to our marriage ceremony, you said, my mother and father may now see that their wish is fulfilled. Now your mother and father have seen their wish fulfilled, but not mine. If you love me and want me to have me, then you must come and visit me in the Pearland of my father. And with these words, she flew away. So there's a price to pay. You're messing with spirits. You're not messing in the human world. There's a price to pay. And the price is that you come and seek out the demonic father, the creator of the evil spirits. That is the collective shadow. You have to come see the collective shadow. Djihanishah wept. She left him again. He doesn't seem to get the message. She is not for him. This is not meant to happen. Parents came and said, we would like to give you the daughter of this and that vizier, but nothing helped. The maiden went to her parents and related the story of all that had happened. Her father said, oh, my daughter, that was the son of a king. You were meant for him. You should not have flown away. The girl answered, I hope that he searches and finds me or dies for my sake. And besides, he must be found in the castle of the Padishah of the birds in the garden with the fountain and rose tree. According to these words, her father sent 2 Peris out to find the old Padish with the white beard and the Djihanishah. The Djihanishah once again boarded a boat, just as 3 years earlier, and sailed again to the land. There the barker cried out, a suit, 1,000 paster, and a pretty girl for 1 hour of work. The Djihanishah took on the job, the suit, the money, and the girl mounted a horse and rode up into the mountains. So Djihanishah took on a slave girl. By doing that, he basically broke his covenant. And by breaking the covenant with the spirit, he has caused irreparable damage. Just as before, took off his clothes, let himself be sewn into the belly of the dead horse. The big birds came and carried him up to the top of the mountain. They pecked open the horse. He stepped out and the birds all scattered. When Djihanishah looked around and saw the people below, they cried out, throw a stone down, which they had before. We will tell you how to climb down. The Djihanishah did not throw a stone down because the last time of the people had deceived him. The stone weighed as much as the Usman Oko and was worth its weight in gold. Like the first time, he took 2 bones as supporters and slowly climbed down. When he came again to the height of the 2 minutes from the ground, saw no path, no crevices in the cliff. He threw himself down and collapsed unconscious. So, He did not go through the ritual. The ritual was he has to throw down the stone. It's part of the ritual. He broke the ritual. He's taking shortcuts. He broke the ritual. He violated the covenant. He soiled the covenant. Okay. So he looked again and went there. Inside, he found the old man in the white beard and kissed his hands and feet. This is a sign of respect, kissing hands and feet. In the old world, this is a sign of respect. You're basically telling the person that you respect them for their wisdom, for the years they've been on the planet. That's why you kiss their feet. You kiss their hands for all the things they have created with them. Hands are of creation. The old man knew that the girl had escaped. Her father had sent 2 pairy messengers to find the youth. He asked the birds, that is the old man Paddish of the birds, do you know of the land of the Perrys? The bird answered, I do not know. This is the land of the spirits of it. But there is a great bird called the emerald bird whom we could call and ask. So they call the emerald bird. This is a magical bird, transformative. I know this border, but I'll not go beyond. To fly from here, the castle of the Paddish of the birds, all the way to the border of the Perryland would take 3 months. From the border to the city where the father of the maiden lives would take another 6 months. So it's not a real place, right? It's a magical place. It's not a real place. He has to travel for 3 months and then it becomes 6 months and then it's 9 months. Well, where is he traveling to? Why does it take so much time? When the bird upon which you sit cries out, Tashik, then give him a piece of meat. When he calls out, Tashunk, then give him some water. To the emerald bird, he said, fly, the Djihanishah to my elder brother, then fly back. The emerald bird flew the Djihanishah to the elder brother. Paddish gave him the letter and returned. The elder brother read the letter. And the letter stated, put this Johannes on a strong bird, write a letter to our eldest brother that you should find another bird to take the young man to the land of Perrys. The brother then called together all his birds and picked the strongest, set the Johannes upon it, and gave him the message. Because he's taken a human into the underworld. The bird then flew to the eldest brother, and there the Djihanishah mounted another bird who flew him and set him down at the border of the Perryland. There Djihanishah met the 2 Perrys whom the father of the girl had sent out to find him. So the emerald bird is like a phoenix. They said to one another, this is one whom our Peri Padishah is looking for. They took hold of him without causing any pain and brought him to the Peri's maiden's father. This one said, I am satisfied and ordered the wedding ceremony. Be prepared and consummate. When all was finished, he brought the Djihanishah to the nuptial chamber, and there he attained his wish. You got your wish. Now what? You got your wish. But the way you came upon the journey, you violated all the rules of the journey. So you got your wish, but be careful for what you wish for. After some time had passed, Johannes longed to visit his father. He put his wife on the Perrys and sent precious gifts along with them. Then they flew through the air. They looked down and saw a place with the meadows and the fields and barren land below. The wife asked to stay there for the night. They stepped down from the air and tarried in this place. As they leisured, the wife went into the water to wash her back. There on the shore, she removed her clothes. As she stepped into the water, a wolf came out of the forest and killed the woman. So the shadow reclaimed what Djihanishah thought he took. When the husband learned that the wolf had eaten up his beloved wife, he began to weep and never stopped. He would go neither to his father nor to the parents of the girl, but remained at the place crying until he died. That means he killed her. That means his wolf is the one that killed her. He killed her because of what he did. So von Franz talks about in the center of the castle lies a rose garden with a pool of water. The whole scene represents a mandala, she says, which according to Jung can be regarded as the actual, that is, effective reflection of a conscious attitude that can state neither its aim nor its purpose, and because of this failure, projects its activity entirely upon the virtual center of the mandala. The compelling force necessary for this projection always lies in some situation where the individual no longer knows how to help himself in any other way. So the symbol of the rose garden occurs often in what we call medieval alchemy. It is a place of transformation where the doves become maidens when they take off their clothes. So they basically are shapeshifters, right? The rose is therefore often an attribute of the beloved Aphrodite symbol. So he faints under the roses, right? The rose bush. Like the rose, the garden is the feminine symbol. It is the place of healing and resurrection. As a mandala, the vessel of rebirth into the divine, being the symbol of the fountain and the spring are related to that garden. As the symbol of the flow of life, the fountain is essentially related to the image of the anima and appears in conjunction with her. As we read in the Virgin Tsar, she says, in the golden castle that hung in the air. Consequently, the fountain also has a maternal meaning, carries secret wisdom and timeless events. So insofar as the garden, the spring, and the old wise one can all be symbols of living, mysterious, preserving, and guiding spirits. We can interpret them as one being, the helping psychopomp. In this fairy tale is sometimes described as a man, sometimes as a bird, also the lord of the birds. This shape-shifting, this changeableness emphasizes the spiritual essence of the old wise one, who is the epitome of inspiration, holds the key, and lead to the secret mandala symbol behind the locked door. The story of Djihanishah.
Yeah, the story of a man who did not know he was a wolf.
Yes.
He did not know
Well,
that
if you know,
Allah led him to himself, which is a self-serving, voracious, pursuant beast.
correct. And that's what he was.
Yep, at the end.
Yeah,
He took something that wasn't his, a
correct.
parody. He pursued it the way he shouldn't have. He entered this world he shouldn't be in. And as a result, it manifested again. He manifested himself.
Well, he became conscious, right? So in the beginning of the story, we talked about the parallel between the old wise one and the animal. They both come to tell you of what you can and cannot do. And he tells him what he cannot do. He tells him from the beginning, he says, here's the castle, all these doors. I know your dumbass is going to go through door number 1. That's the only one you shouldn't go through. But what he says is like telling at the beginning. He says, I've suffered so much misfortune. What's a little bit more misfortune, which is dangerous words. You're basically questioning the God of misfortune. The God of misfortune is that she's a God. You can't question misfortune.
Mhm.
You can't question that you didn't have enough misfortune. You could always have more misfortune. That's stupid act of testing misfortune. So his first act, he tests misfortune. He says, I faced so much. Who cares about a little bit more? It's not a little bit, it's a lot. Okay. And this is how a little bit becomes a lot. This is what you're going to do. They only come once a year. You're going to blow it
Mhm.
the first time. You're going to blow it the second time. And the third time, you're going to blow it. Right?
Mhm.
So her father tells her he's a king's son, but he doesn't act of royalty. He acts out of jealousy and envy and possession and neediness. And when his position arrives, he is more than happy to take on a slave girl as his concubine. But he wants to marry the spirit. Therefore, he breaks the covenant with the spirit as he goes to retrieve her. And when she changes form in the end, he does not realize that he also had changed forms. He had changed into a wolf. He has changed into the shadow. And the shadow is what killed her.
Mhm.
Because only he knew her real essence. And therefore, he's the only one who knew how to kill her. She's a shapeshifter. She's a magical creature. You need to know that she's a magical creature.
I'm really glad Lisa brought up the point she did. As I'm sitting here thinking about it. And most of history, this is a generalization, but I think it's basically true. Most of history of our planet, people would read this story. I'll just say men would read this story and think, up until about the last, I think, 50, 60 years, most men would read this story and say, that poor guy got hoodwinked by a femme fatale. You know, I mean, why didn't he see this? Why didn't he see it coming? He just got played all the way through. Not thinking about what Lisa just said. Wait a minute. Yeah, that is what she was. But what is it about you that made you succumb to it and pursue it and go against every bit of evidence that you had and go against your own self-centered desires to and be played along by them? What's the matter with you? Because there's something really the matter with him.
Well, it's a seduction of the anima, right?
Yeah.
So seduced by the anima, you stop acting like you're conscious or moral. You start acting out of eros, and he starts acting out of
and you feel like it's legitimate.
Well, yeah, you're possessed. That's what we call possession, right? In Jungian psychology, we call it the possession. So when he sees her, she's naked in the fountain, right? He saw her transform, but that part he leaves out completely. Like that should have freaked him out. But instead, he sees a naked young girl. She's a young maiden, which means she's a virgin. Is probably not 18, a young maiden.
And a garden of roses, which are symbolic for sensuality, for femininity, and even for feminine genitalia. And then And then nightingales, which are a bird that sings in the evening, that is supposed to imply sensuality. And he just, man, he's like, he just like catches that scent and is just following it, because he has no self-control and no understanding of what it is that's possessing him.
Yeah. Well, and he doesn't have a moral compass. When he goes to open the door, he says, I've had misfortune. Who cares about what the old man says? Out of respect for the old man. So this is why you need to listen to the wise one. You didn't listen to the wise one. You didn't listen to the anima either. The anima
No.
told you, you've had what you wanted. Let me go. You got what you wanted. She was very clear with him. She said,
Yeah.
for a year, you got what you wanted. Now let me go. Set me free. Right? And he wouldn't.
He was seeing her as a possession.
Correct.
He was not seeing her as an equal human being.
Correct.
And she was just something to have and possess. And he would do whatever it took to get it.
Correct. Yeah.
So thank you, Lisa, for starting us off with that point, because that is so oftentimes not even discussed in these kinds of situations and stories, much less being the premier point that was made. So kudos, and I support it 100%.
So the shadow, when the shadow arrives, the shadow rationalizes behavior. The shadow says, so what if she's underage? So what if she's naked? So what if you just stole her clothes? So what if you hold her hostage? So what? And he basically fell into the shadow. His need for possession possessed him. You know, the saying of whatever you're searching for is searching for you. This is very clear in this story. Whatever he was searching for was searching for him. And what was searching for him in the end turns into grief. What was searching for him was the appetite of the wolf. The appetite he could not satisfy. He could not satisfy with having her in marriage. He could not be satisfied with having her as a wife. He could not be satisfied. And remember, what the old wise one said to him was, if you hold her long enough, she will produce an heir for you. She will produce a child.
Yeah.
Right? She doesn't produce a child for him. He holds her, but she does not produce a child for him. And therefore, that relationship from the get-go has already soured.
Yeah. And this is how men have thought in general, again, throughout many, many cultures and countries.
Oh, yeah.
For eons.
Yeah.
That's how they viewed women, as a possession that's supposed to allow themselves to have an heir.
Well, you know, Sultan Suleiman had concubines. He had hundreds of concubines all around the castle. And so he compares himself. At the beginning, her and her sisters say, make sure there are no humans around. What she means is make sure there are no human males around. She wasn't worried about human females. She was warning him about human males.
It almost smacks. Dr. Lahab, it almost smacks Dr. Lahab to me as a narcissistic sexual assault.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what it is. I mean, that's a direct interpretation of the fairy tale. The fairy tale is of an assault. It is of narcissism. It is of psychological control. It is of manipulation. It is of possessing, dominating, and capturing the feminine, capturing, holding. He built a castle on top of her clothes to keep her trapped in the castle. And she found a way out.
And interestingly enough, there will be some, this blows my mind. There will be some who say, what was he supposed to do? She takes her clothes off in front of him.
Well, he was told not to enter that room. That room was not for him anyway. That
Of
door was
course.
not for him anyway. That garden was not for him anyway.
Of course, but some male egos will still think that way.
Yeah, well,
It shows you how distorted they are about this understanding that we're talking about.
well, we're also talking about what is archaic and the way the masculine thinks.
Yeah.
And what you're talking about is the archaic. You're talking about the animalistic part of the male. You're talking about the predator
Yeah.
in the male. This is not the story of the hero. This is
Yeah.
the story of the anti-hero. This is the story of the shadow. This is
And
not the story of the hero.
unfortunately, it's not still archaic only. There are cultures and men within cultures across the world that still think this way.
Well, we just in the Supreme Court, there were like 5 judges who basically told the woman has no right to own her own body. We just passed that. It's 2022, for God's sakes.
Yeah. Well, that's my point.
For God's
Yeah,
sake.
that's my point. This issue is still a worldwide problem.
Absolutely, it's a worldwide problem. Absolutely. I mean, as much as we talk about these fairy tales, as much as we're also talking about a prevailing evil in fairy tales. That's the first thing Von Franz says to us. There's an evil in the fairy tale. And remember that who is considered evil in the fairy tale? The feminine is considered evil in the fairy tale. The feminine is considered dangerous in the fairy tale. The feminine is the one that is enticing in the fairy tale.
She's the seducer.
She is the seducer. So when we look at evil in fairy tales, that's what we're seeing. We're looking at what they call the anti-hero. The anti-hero, which is everything is mine. This is about me. This is not about anybody else. I'm not giving my life for anybody. I am taking what I want. I'm going to create what I want. And, we are in the age of the anti-heroes. We're in the age of the robber barons, right? We're in the age of the Batmans. We're in the age of Shadow. Shadow has appeared from around every corner and has established itself in the light as a legitimate way of relating to the world. It is no longer hidden. It is out in the open. And its danger is as real as it is in the fairy tale. The fairy tale is about innocence lost. Remember, this is a sacred garden, right? And it's where they come to renew, are reborn. This is sacred water. And what happens when he opens the door? The first thing he does, he basically, he soils it. He soils the garden because now you're entering a garden that you're not invited to.
Yeah, I think you made a poignant point when you said the shadow rationalizes morality in a way that is distorted and not true. It doesn't create, and it's self-serving in its execution. And these are aspects of shadow that are within all of us that need to be known, recognized, and tempered in ways that are accepted and tempered, known. But to be possessed, and going on in the story of what you're saying, and being possessed by your shadow, the story, I liked how the story reflected that in the seemingly repetitive nature of actions. Having going, as the saying says, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
In some aspects, he's repeating steps that are the same. This isn't logical. Why should you do this? Why do you have to go this far? And you're in dogged pursuit, so focused to and it disregards all rules or of nature of what it's supposed to be. And it was an interesting, when it first came about, I thought, well, why is he doing this again? And I thought, oh, this is interesting. It's interesting how it's reflecting the being possessed by an idea.
Well, he blames the people who are waiting for him to throw the rock.
Mm.
And it's part of the payment for being in, because they sowed you in the horse's belly. It's part of the payment. The part of the payment is you throw the rock from the top and they take it and go. But he blamed them for being what? He
Being
blamed,
liars.
huh?
For being liars, for
being liars and for being greedy, right? So the second time he's supposed to do it, he doesn't do it. So who is he reflecting? What is he reflecting? He's reflecting his own need for greed and power. And he wanted to make them suffer. Right? And so when the demonic father reaches out for him, he's more than happy to go without even thinking that this could be a perilous journey and these people might kill me. He doesn't care. It's like, yeah, I'll go. Because he's already thinking, I'll kill them before they kill me. That's how the shadow thinks. The shadow always says, I will get them before they get me. I know they're coming after me, so I'm going to get them before they get me. So if you hear that voice in your head, I'm going to get them before they get me, that's your shadow. That's the sound of danger, danger, Will Robinson, danger. That's the shadow. The shadow is like, well, why isn't that my share? Why is it theirs? Why do they always get the good part? Why do I always get the bad part? And it doesn't matter if they're richer or poorer than you, or stronger or taller or prettier. That really doesn't matter to the shadow.
No.
The shadow doesn't care about that.
It can possess all of the above.
It can. It can. And it can possess none of those traits. It doesn't matter to it. When it comes, it comes. It will use any excuse to get to whatever it wants to do. And that's what happens in the story. He uses every excuse. They say, well, maybe she's not for you. Maybe you should just marry somebody instead. No, I have to have her. So always worry about the shadow. When you hear the words, what you are seeking is seeking you. What we are talking about is the shadow. The shadow is dangerous in that the more you remain unconscious of the shadow, the more the shadow is blamed for your ignorance. It wasn't me. I was drunk. It wasn't me. I was hot. It wasn't me. I had a bad day. It wasn't me. My father died, or my mother died, or my aunt died. It wasn't me. I just lost my job. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. It was, so it's never you. You never take any responsibility for any action. The old wise one wants him to take responsibility for his actions, but he doesn't listen. does not listen to him, does not listen to anybody. That's part of the story. He goes around, he doesn't listen to anybody. So, you know, it's the modern myth of you know, how I made it big in business. Yeah. Yeah, you lie, cheat, and steal. And that's exactly what he did. It's a modern day story. It's not a fairy tale. It's a modern day story. It's a story of today. It's a story of how we treat the sacred, right? How we treat creation. Well, we're destroying creation. How we treat the feminine. Well, we're destroying the feminine. We're at war with the feminine. We want to control it. We want to dissect it. We want to force it. We want to take away contraceptives from it. We want to distort it. It's ours. It's under our control. No, that's the shadow. That's the shadow of the masculine.
I'm glad we read this story because, you know, because we've read a number of stories about heroes with relatively good endings, and it's helped us to focus on what to look for in our journeys. But this one helps us to know what to look out for in our journey. And I like that. I like that juxtaposition there, because we need to be reminded what to look out for in ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not necessarily conscious of the shadow when it comes. We're always conscious of the shadow afterwards. We're like, oh shit, I did that. Oh shit, I said that. Oh shit. That's what we say. That's the shadow. Because the shadow doesn't want to apologize. It wants to say, oh shit. It doesn't want to apologize. Doesn't want to take responsibility. Okay. So we are finished with our story for today. And we want to thank everybody. As always, we say goodbye in the affirmation of I am not afraid.
I am not afraid.
I'm not afraid.
We are not afraid, and we are the Institute for Conflict. And we are back next week with another IFC's Individuation podcast. Thank you, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.